Ms. Ragu. Mr. Bracken.
Here.
Mr. Ellerby.
Here.
Mayor Snavely.
Here. We're all here. I would invite those who wish to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. A motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
And seconded. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll now move to public participation, and it is my pleasure to start off with a proclamation. Whereas the civic organization currently known as Lions International was organized in the early 20th century. And whereas Lions International is based on the principles of courage, strength, fidelity, and civic activity with over 1.4 million members worldwide in nearly 47,000 local clubs. And whereas the mission of Lions International is health and wellness, strengthening the community, engaging in humanitarian service, and encouraging peace and international understanding. And whereas the Oxford Lions Club was chartered by Lions International on May 19th, 1947, and held its first meeting in Oxford on June 2nd, 1947. And whereas the Oxford Lions Club for 75 years has been a leader in local fundraising and collaborating with other civic groups for community service programs, including its annual Halloween parade, Christmas tree sales, and local golf events. And whereas the Oxford Lions Club has been active in the Lions International Sight Savers campaign, including eyeglass collections and financial support of eye examinations and eyeglass prescriptions in the Talawanda School District, and Lane Library's large print book program. And whereas the Oxford Lions Club has supported programs for local use, including Miami Little League, Oxford Parks and Recreation, Learn to Swim programs, Talawanda High School academic scholarships, and literacy programs. Now, therefore, I, William B. Snavely, Mayor of the City of Oxford, Ohio, do hereby proclaim Thursday, May 19th, 2022, as Oxford Lions Club Day in the City of Oxford, in recognition of the 75th anniversary of the founding of the Oxford Lions Club and in appreciation for the contributions of the Oxford Lions Club to the community. I would love to have someone from Lions Club present this. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Say anything?
No, I don't.
Let's do it. Yeah, Phil, you want this? You don't have to, but if you want to, you
I have to come over. Right. All I'm gonna say is, he wouldn't say anything.
State your name for the record, please.
My name is Philip Abshire. I'm a resident of Milford Township. And as you can tell, I'm the incoming president. That was the outgoing president who will stick me with the gavel tomorrow. I wanted to point out that there are a lot of Lions here today, and we very humbly yet proudly appreciate this. We just hope that we can continue another 75 years of service to our community. Thank you very much.
You do a great job. Congratulations. All right. Next, we have two notices to legislative authority. The first is a transfer of permits to Fridge and Pantry. The second is a new permit for Will's Uptown Pizza and Carryout. As we did last time,
I move that we receive both notices of authority without comment.
thank you. Without objection, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Now we will move to public comments. And at this time, anyone who wishes to address council about items that are not on the agenda or on the consent agenda, please come forward at this time and state your name and address for the record. And we're glad to have you, and we'll give you 5 minutes to say whatever you want to say.
Hi, my name is Liz Crable. I have to say my address.
At least your street, yeah.
I live at 307 West Chestnut Street in Oxford. I'm here because I am in favor of reopening the Dora with no end date. As a townie who is 10 years out from college, I don't spend a lot of time in the bars. But when Dora began at the start of COVID, I realized how much I enjoy simply sitting outside in the park with a beer. I'm nervous, I don't know why.
You shouldn't be, because we're real friendly.
If Dora were available year-round, I think I'd spend a lot more time enjoying our uptown square, whether that be with friends and their young children or after a walk uptown with my dog. There's also a lot of times throughout the Miami calendar year when the weather is nice and I'd appreciate the fun social opportunities that Dora provides. I personally am not concerned with the students' behavior in regards to Dora. I wouldn't automatically assume that public intoxication would increase dramatically for students with Dora. I believe this is mostly an issue late at night when the bars close or at off-campus house parties where alcohol is readily available for free. I believe that the nature and cost of Dora would naturally lead to different behaviors from the students. Finally, I think it would be good for the economy in our town. Many of my friends would like to see it opened up year-round, and if it were, we would spend more time uptown, obviously spending money on food, incense, stuff like that. I'd be way more likely to go to the music festival in the summer if I could have a beer. In fact, I often go to Hamilton for their Thursday Summer Music Festival for that reason. And they have Dora, and I know it's affected their economy positively. If Oxford wants to continue to be a progressive, forward-thinking, successful town, we need to be open to new ideas, and I think that year-round Dora is a good idea. Thank you.
Super. You may have been a little nervous, but you did an excellent job.
I wrote it down.
Very good. Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to address council tonight? Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Peggy Brandstrader and I live on Meadow Circle. And it probably won't surprise you that I have come to encourage you to look again at rooftop solar in Oxford. I want to remind you that the village of Silverton, with 5,000 residents, much smaller than Oxford, has set aside $30,000 of their general budget. They don't have any American, whatever that name of the extra money from the, but they don't have any federal bucks, so they put it in their general budget. They think it's that important, and they're giving 15 $1,000 rebates to anybody who does rooftop solar, and they're giving away 3 $5,000 with an income stipulation on it for low or moderate income. And you know, I think we could do something probably a little more extensive than that, given our resources. This tax credit, the federal tax credit, is in the process of disappearing. It might come back if we could ever get Build Back Better done, but that doesn't look very hopeful at the moment. Electricity rates are increasing. There was recent publications in newspapers and various things about electric rates going up. The time to do this is now. It's not later. Later will be too late. So it's something that needs to, I think, some urgency and some immediacy. I also have a few comments about pollinator gardens, but I think that's on the consent agenda, and I'll wait for that later.
If it's on the consent agenda and you want to talk about it, now's the time.
Oh, now's the time. Okay. A different hat. I now come as board member of Audubon Miami Valley, who passed a resolution last night encouraging me to come address this. I don't know if you know this, but 3 years ago, Audubon Miami Valley got a grant from the national organizations to put a pollinator garden in Oxford. And I wasn't involved at that time. Linda Williams did this, and she went all around trying to figure out who wants one. And I know she talked to them at the community park. I don't know who she talked to, but they did not think they had a suitable place at the moment. So the pollinator garden was put in at the Oxford Art Building, and we've been maintaining it ever since then. They've also now entered into an agreement with Houston Woods to put in a garden in the bird viewing area at the new Nature Center. They actually appropriated $1,000 for plants last night out of their budget. They're interested in the discussion that happened with the students from Dr. Pritchard's students about a Pollinator Garden at the community park. I've looked at the site, it's perfect. I think we could do something yet this spring if we get action on it, and Audubon Miami Valley would be interested in working with the city. I'd try to work out some shared responsibility, might be some possibility of budgeting for plants. Frankly, I personally know how to get a bunch of free plants that would be appropriate for that. This is the time that a lot of my gardening friends and I are subdividing things, and I actually have about 3 dozen extra plants sitting in my side yard. So I'm encouraging you that we could do something soon if you want to.
Super. Thank you very much for your comments. And there are at least 3 members of council sitting up here who have taken advantage of that Silverton program that you mentioned. And my electric bill last month was $12. Welcome.
Welcome. Good evening. Thanks for the chance to offer a few comments. My name is Dan Heiker. I live in Hickory Wood Court. I lived in Oxford for about 20 years now. I really enjoy living here. Hope to live here a lot longer. I just had some friendly comments about economic development. As I understand, the 3 pillars of our strategic outlook have to do with the environment, housing, and economic development. I understand those 3. I think they work well together. Well, I really like Oxford. I think it could be better. I think probably many of us feel we could be better. I think we deserve to be better, and I think we could be better. I think economic development, the way we think about that and move forward with that, could play a big role in how we become better. As I go around and look at other cities, Hamilton or Columbus, Indiana, or many others, they seem to be very successful at doing some things I would like to emulate or share in that success. So I don't have any answers, just some things to think about as we move forward. So it seems to me that we have some fantastic business owners and businesses in Oxford. I would just like to have more of them and think about what we might be able to do to influence who opens businesses and the types of businesses that are opened here. We have many very similar businesses, and then there are types of businesses that we don't have any of here. I think it would be very helpful if we could do that. So can we think about a way to attract the types of businesses that we would like to have here? That's really the goal, I think, here. Just a couple of things I might offer up as I have talked to others and communities where they seem to have been quite successful. You know, partnering with nonprofits or someone to acquire commercial property seems to be a big deal. I think rents are very expensive for some of our business owners. I think it's prohibitively high for things maybe we'd like to be here but aren't. And so finding a way to purchase block by block if necessary, building by building if necessary, to try and control those rents and again provide an incentive and an atmosphere to attract the types of business we want. I think acquiring commercial property might be an important piece of that puzzle, however we might do it. I think assisting with commercial build-outs is something that other communities do. And there have been some businesses some of you have worked very hard to try and bring here. We're very close. I think that was a big stumbling block, whether it be HVAC or the roof or other things. So assisting with those build-outs I think would be helpful. And then thirdly, and this is a little more out there, but having some kind of a nonprofit partnership with a group of people to help lead recruitment and support of businesses that start here. And I guess what I'm thinking about there is we've had, I think, a lot of people who've lived in Oxford, especially as students, and loved it here, loved their time here, but now they've gone out into the world and done some very impressive things. They've started businesses, run businesses. They've really experienced a lot, and they're very good at understanding complex problems and solving complex problems. They have access to ideas and capital in ways I don't think I understand, or maybe many of us do. So there might be opportunities to partner with people who have done that, access to capital and ideas that would, I think, very much enjoy playing a role in helping us understand and solve some of the problems we have or becoming better, as I said. So anyway, just some thoughts for us to consider. I appreciate your time, and hope you all have a great night.
Thank you.
We don't have a vacancy on the CIC coming up, do we?
bet we might. You'd be good for that.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyone else wish to address council? Randy, welcome.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Randy Thomas, 239 Northridge Drive. And after the last dignified citizen of Oxford just spoke, I feel compelled to say there's this project called College at Elm that pretty much what he covered is what we're hoping to do. And of course, obviously the city is a partner with the university on that, and we're still out seeking funding to finish out the construction and also for the operations of it. It will, in fact, bring together those minds that he talked about, not only that are locally here, but, and forgive me, I cannot remember the name, perhaps Jessica, you can, of the organization, National Organization of Retirees, but they've agreed to be a...
ARP?
Is it SCORE?
SCORE, thank you, Doug, yes, Doug gets the SCORE. SCORE, which is executives that are retired. Cincinnati has a chapter, and they've already agreed to be a part of College at Elm. So his suggestion actually will take place. It'll go beyond Oxford and things like that. And the whole purpose there, of course, is if we can capture one of the at least three of the student startup groups and get them to stay in town, over time we can just build an economy that is beyond simply those that service the university and the student population. Nothing against that. I love that. Thank you for doing that. My mom is here. That actually is not why I stepped up, though, Mr. Mayor. My mom is 89 years old. She had an opportunity to meet your wife the other day at the voting booth. She's relocated to Toledo, and she absolutely loves Oxford, Ohio. And she says she wishes she would have done this earlier. So I'm here on her behalf, thanking you all for the great work that you do to make Oxford the place that it is. I know you have tough decisions that come up. You'll have tough decisions coming in the future, and there are a great number of us in the community who perhaps don't always come up and tell you thank you, but we just want, on behalf of my mom and the rest of them, just thank you for taking the time to be here. I know you all have other jobs, and to put in the time to make this place the place that it is, and as Mr. Heitker said, to even make it better. So that's my sentiment. Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much, Randy. We're not used to receiving positive. We don't know how to react to that. So. Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Hi, thank you. Hi, friends. My name is Steve Large. I live at 186 Hilltop Road. Let me start by saying I adore Oxford. Every single thing about this town is special. I cannot share enough with my friends about how unique this town is and our community is. I was just actually in Chicago this past weekend. I escaped commencement, and to see a friend and just rave again about our special community. Some of you may remember the last time I was at this podium, and it was discussing Miami's approach to COVID. And if you remember, it was a bit of a bumpy ride. That exchange felt a touch tense at times, and there were some controversial decisions or disagreements that were shared. But what was beautiful about that moment is that there was this shared valuing of health and wellness and safety. So for those that were there, I'm just trying to reorient you back to that situation. Health, wellness, and safety. I decided to come up to the podium today to talk about the expansion of DORA and how that aligns or doesn't align with those values of health, wellness, and safety. I am not opposed to a limitless 12-month DORA, not opposed to alcohol use. What I am opposed to is the extent of the expansion of DORA. And I know that's not necessarily what you're all here to discuss. It sounds like the ultimate discussion is around whether there's an endpoint to DORA or not. But as I read the ordinance and as I understand it, it looks as if it's going to be an 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7-day-a-week operation. And to me, I question or wonder, what value does that show our community then? That we're essentially saying 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, if you'd like to have an alcoholic beverage, go for it. To me, that doesn't necessarily align with health, wellness, or safety, and so I wanted to bring up that discrepancy and encourage you to think more about that. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. we're very thankful for each and every one of you for coming forward. And it's not, it looks kind of scary to come up and talk before council. When I was not on council, it was a little nervous for me too, so I get that. I think you'll find council's pretty friendly. We'll move then to the consent agenda, and I would entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded by Councilor French. Would anyone like an item removed? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll move then to resolutions, and I'll ask Heather to read our first one.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application to Natureworks for ADA inclusive playground equipment.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
And there is a second. Casey, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
How are you?
It's good to see you. I haven't been here in a couple of
Good to
meetings,
see
so
you.
here I am. If you remember, there was a very similar resolution on the agenda several weeks ago to submit a grant application to Procter & Gamble. We were not awarded as a recipient at that time for this same exact project. So we are moving on and applying to Natureworks, which is due on June 1st. We are proposing that we pay for $75,000 of this project, and we ask Natureworks to match that at $75,000. Something else that's happened since the last time to now, I've been working with a local citizen who does have I believe she's 10 years old, a daughter in a wheelchair, and she's kind of how all this started, was she came to us looking for more inclusivity in playgrounds. And she has since started a petition in support of this project. I believe she has 500 signatures on that petition. And as of this evening, as I was sitting back there, I received an email of somebody who found out about this and is offering, I believe, financial support in addition to what we're looking to do here. So we'll keep pushing until the money comes up, whether it's from here or a citizen or wherever. We're going to try to make sure at least one of our playgrounds at the park is inclusive and wheelchair friendly.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Would anyone from the public like to address this resolution? Seeing that, council?
Fingers crossed on the grant.
I think whenever there's a need that arises organically, where someone from the community says, hey, I'd like this, and we respond, I think, again, it shows why Oxford is the wonderful community that it is, so thank you.
I think so too. All those in favor of the resolution indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Let's get that grant. Good job. You may read the second one.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a 3-year agreement with G&J Pepsi Company for the supply of beverages for the Oxford Parks and Recreation Department.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. Thank you. You're up again, Casey.
Here I am. This is essentially a renewal contract. We had a 3-year contract with Pepsi that just expired, I believe, in March. But we've been under contract with Pepsi for many, many years prior to that. So this is renewing an additional 3 years from where we are. We've been very pleased with not just the products, but the service, the equipment that they provide, the maintenance that they provide, all free of charge. And they also provide a lot of rebates based on how many cases of product we buy. We get rebates for those. And they provide some upfront support as well for any kind of other project we may need. They offer that. So it's been a great relationship, especially since the new pool opened. They were very eager to jump on board when we opened the Aquatic Center. And our sales, I think, would show that it's beneficial for both us and for Pepsi to sign this contract.
Super. Thank you, Casey. Would anyone from the public like to address this resolution? Councilors have any questions, comments? All those in favor of the resolution indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Move to number 3.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application for the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments requesting funding from the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program for the Amtrak project.
Is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
moved by Councilor Prithridge and seconded by Vice Mayor Correa.
Good evening.
Go, Jessica.
So this grant would be our first grant that we apply for the actual construction of the platform for the Amtrak stop along the Cardinal line. The location of the platform is proposed to be at 909 South Main Street, and we would construct a small parking area, the actual platform, and then build out a waiting room in partnership with the Butler County Regional Transit Authority. So the grant could go toward all of those expenses. The grants can go up to $8 million. They do require a 20% match, and they're due June 3rd. If awarded, we would anticipate the funds being released in fiscal year 26. So it gives us a few years to kind of get ready. We're still waiting for final numbers from the AECom, which is our company who's helping with the estimate, but our initial estimates are around $2.1 million, and that does not include the build out of that waiting room. We're still waiting from Amtrak on the specifications of that build out. Because of this, we're asking permission to apply for up to $2.5 million, and using the remaining $150,000 that we have allocated toward this project toward the match. The remainder of the match we would ask from Miami University and their $350,000 commitment toward this project, for a total of $500,000 that we can put toward the match. That at the $2.5 million ekes us into that 20% category of the match, so no extra points. You guys know how I like to go point chasing. But at the same time, I still think we have a very competitive application, and it would be worthwhile to submit. Happy to answer any questions.
Super. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to address this resolution? Councilor, yeah, please.
I have my Miami University hat on now, not my resident hat on. We are extremely supportive of this, as Jessica said, and you all know we've got the agreement to put in $350,000 to begin with. But you know, we want to see this project through. We've done some advocacy work to share fair to say. Jessica and the team, Councilman Prithridge, communicated with the governor's office, with the Ohio Department of Transportation, and the Rail Commission, through the University City Council, the Chamber of Commerce, the CIC. Was that all of us? And we did receive responses back from all those entities, thanking us for the quality of our presentation and things. So it's tied together a bit, because if that goes through and the governor and the state get on the list, then that could mean dollars for the Cardinal, potentially other things as well, but the Cardinal potentially to come at more regular hours, more trains and things like that. So this is huge. What you're all hopefully will do here will be, I won't say the first step, but the second or third step in us getting the station actually here and trains to come, not only in the middle of the night, but at other times as well. So thank you.
Super. Thank you, Randy. Okay, not seeing any other comments from the public. Is there questions or comments from councilors?
I have a question from the Public Arts Commission. Would there be an opportunity to include public art in the waiting room or, on the building? Is that something that the city would have access to?
So we haven't currently built public art into the budget, but there will definitely be spaces, if you want to think of them as like blank walls, that could be used for a public art location. But the funding for the public art would need to be found somewhere. Yeah.
Thank you.
So just a question, is this a reimbursement grant? So would
It
we
is,
spend- okay.
yeah.
And then the question is, I'm trying to understand when's the earliest we may likely have a platform, because we would have to budget for and pay for this ahead of time. So if everything were to line up, what's the earliest we could have a platform?
I mean, I'm going off of past allocations from OKI, and that's that year 26 would come out. So if we stayed on their schedule, if we got the grant and we stayed on a schedule, we anticipate that we would do a few years of formal engineering and design and then construction in 26. That's actually maybe an okay thing because it gives us time for the exchange of real estate that we're going to talk about next. if the universe aligned, like, and everything was ready and we wanted to raise our hand earlier, there are times where you could raise your hand and say, hey, OKI, we're ready to go if you're ready. And there's always projects that kind of get shifted around. So there is, if you would, but again, things would have to really line up, but you could raise your hand and ask for an earlier allocation if you were really ready to go.
So yeah, I just want to express thanks because we've been talking about this for a little while. But what's really exciting is that there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and we got more resolutions coming up. It's been quite complex, but we're on the verge of all the pieces coming together. And if they all come together right, it's going to be really big for Oxford. So the idea that we're moving forward, this is me getting super excited in May of 2022, which is we're moving forward on applying for a grant. We're moving forward on potentially securing through property trade the site. And through our advocacy, and thank you so much to Randy and everyone else who helped advocate, that not only in a few years we could have a platform, which has always been the goal, but a platform that's served by a high level of train service. And, you know, forgive me for thinking that's really big in a town like ours. So, yes, thank you. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed because OKI, our success rate with OKI has been really, knock on wood, we've been doing whoever's been doing it has been doing a really good job.
Good grant writer.
With the trail, I mean, I think it's the quality grants and it's the ideas that we put forward have been viewed favorably. So, so thank you in advance. We'll keep our fingers crossed, and it's an exciting time.
I want to thank Jessica for following those points.
I do want to let you know that this is going to be more competitive because the points are just, it's a rubric, right? And you can follow the rubric. And I'm going to tell you some of the point scoring is going to be a little lower. It just is because of the nature of the project. So what we can hope for is that they have more money to give away and then they will accept more projects. But our other projects, I was able to be like, da-ding, da-ding. You know, I was able to chase it a little better. So I'm going to be really honest with you that we're going to be scoring more in that mid-range based on their rubric this time. But I still think we should try.
If we increase our local match, is it a worthwhile investment for the
I mean, but you have to get up to the almost 40% match level to really get back the points that you would need, which gets to be a lot more money. And I'm not ready tonight to present what that would be.
I also want to thank Randy Thomas, Aspire, and Miami University for their cooperation and partnership in this. I want to thank the Talawanda School District for their cooperation and active participation in this. We've had a number of meetings, and it is exciting to see it move forward, and this is a very essential step. Anything further? Not all those in favor of this resolution indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted, and Jessica will stay up for the fourth resolution.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to sign an option to exchange real estate agreement between the Board of Education of the Talawanda Local School District and the City of Oxford.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved. Second.
And it is seconded.
Okay, so part 2 of Amtrak. As you know, the Amtrak, well, you may know, the Amtrak term sheet that we received and the recommendations of AECOM, which is our consultant helping us with the design, have both recommended the removal of the Nelson Memorial Building to allow for easier access to the rail platform. This is that location of 909 South Main Street. Talawanda School District currently uses that building and houses 17 staff members in there, and they also use it for their professional development area. We offered to try to build in the purchase of that facility in the grant at $350,000, which is the value, but they informed us that they can't build a facility for 17 people with $350,000, so they were like, no. And so we kind of went back to the drawing board. Around the same time, the Oxford Seniors Organization, just this past year, met with us and shared with us that they're looking at a collaboration with the Tri-Board to move into a new community-style center. With that, and knowing that their lease at the current location of 922 Tollgate, their lease expires in 2024. So we found that we might have an opportunity for an exchange of property. So we had an appraisal done of the Oxford Seniors Building, and it was valued at $590,000. Talawanda Schools did tour that facility and felt that it would meet their needs quite adequately. So what we're recommending is if we are able to secure funding for the rail platform and then council allocates those funds, that we would enter into an exchange of property with Talawanda School District. We would, in exchange for the Nelson Memorial Building, give them the Oxford Seniors Building. We would act on this when we get the funding for Amtrak, and the timing of the Oxford Seniors is important, and so we're really hoping, I mean, in the perfect world, we get the money for Amtrak, it comes down the 26th, and by then they've moved out and they're in and then a new facility. If that doesn't quite work out, we've worked out currently a verbal agreement with Miami University that they would provide for temporary space for Talawanda to move into from the Nelson Memorial Building while we wait for the seniors to then finish, in their fundraising and move out of the seniors building. We don't want to kick the seniors out in any way, shape, or form. We want to make sure that they have a new lovely home, and then we would move Talawanda into that facility. So that's our recommendation. It would be $1 to act on this option, and it would only begin if council then has funding for the platform. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, is there anyone from the public who?
I'm sorry, I do have one I forgot to mention. There is one correction from the actual agreement that's in your packets that Talawanda did add in. And the most substantive change is under the conditions, under closing, it says that.
Could you give us a page number or do you have?
Yes, hold on. On page 88, under the subheading of closing, number 3,
Okay.
they did add in that the Oxford property is vacant and available for Talawanda to occupy unless such condition is waived by Talawanda. So they really wanted to add in kind of like, we really would prefer it be vacant, but this option to be waived by Talawanda is if we can find some other home for them. But if we have no other home and it's not vacant, they do reserve the right to say, we can't move out of our facility. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to address this resolution?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, again, Randy Thomas with Miami University. As the assistant city manager pointed out, Miami is willing to play a role and work with the city and with the school district if the dominoes don't align, that we think we've got places and we can figure something out and work with them and things of that nature. Much like the school district, that's based on the assumptions of the size that they've said and what they need and all those things. But based on what we know right now, we feel that we can accommodate that, and we are all in on seeing this Amtrak stop and the station and everything through. So,
Super. Thank you for your cooperation and willingness to help this move forward.
thank you, sir.
All right. If there's no other comments from the public, discussion, council?
I want to thank the entrepreneurial spirit of all the partners, because it's easy to get to no on this one, but to get to yes took a lot of creativity and openness and trust. And so the idea that we live in a community in which we can do those things and find them mutually beneficial, because if this all comes together, it's going to be really good for everybody. But it took a little bit of risk. So, but again, I know that you met with the school board president and staff meeting with staff, and so thank you to everybody for getting somehow everybody to yes on the conditions.
Thank you.
This is the epitome of a town and gown project. I mean, we have every aspect of town and gown together on this, and we're all working in harmony. I never thought it would happen. I was one of the no camps, and now I'm a yes guy. You know, I was hopeful, but you know, you kind of have to have one foot in reality. But have a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, especially on the federal side. So hopefully, you know, the stars do align and we get the funding that we want, and some people back out of some things, and it shows up faster than normal, and everything just goes our way.
Thank you, Glenn. Anyone else? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This resolution is adopted. Amtrak, here we come.
Thank you.
You may read the next one when you're ready.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a 3-year agreement with Next Step Networking for IT support services and backup disaster recovery services for the city of Oxford at a cost not to exceed $73,200.
Is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
It's been moved
Second.
and seconded. Thank you, Alex.
Good evening again. One of my many hats that we get to wear. So this is for our 3-year contract with Next Step Networking, and they are our long-term partner for our IT services. And so this would be a monthly amount of $6,100 and an annual amount for $73,200. It's a little less than prior years, but it does also decrease a little bit of our on-site support, but we've hired a staff person who's on-site a little more, so we feel competent to cover the day-to-day, and they're going to help. Then they do an excellent job with our security and our backups and our networking. And also, we have some large upgrades coming down the pipeline for cybersecurity that we're going to really need their continued support on. So they do a great job, and we would recommend approval of this contract.
Thank you. Does anyone from the public like to address this item before council? Seeing none. Councilors, any questions or discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Move to number 6.
A resolution approving the reopening of the designated outdoor refreshment area in the city of Oxford on May 22nd, 2022.
Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. And Doug?
Thank you. This piece of legislation is one we've discussed at several meetings, and it was a goal at the council retreat. So this legislation proposes to reopen the city's designated outdoor refreshment area, our DORA, on Sunday, May 22nd, which of course is one day after the Oxford Area Chamber of Commerce Wine and Craft Beer Festival. This legislation does not provide for a closing date as we've done in the past. As city manager, I reserve the right to suspend the dates of operation due to disorderly conduct, littering, or other public nuisance problems. This does not expand the boundaries. We've talked about that as well. That extension of the boundaries will require the city manager to submit to city council a new DORA application, advertise this change in boundaries, hold a public hearing, and then adopt legislation to amend those boundaries. And we would propose to do that later this summer. We'll bring in a new application for that. So basically what we're doing here is reopening our DORA without a closing date. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to address this item? Seeing none, councilors? Any questions, discussion? All right. All those in favor? Hey, you gotta say you want to talk. Go ahead, Dave.
So, yeah, I think that I really have appreciated the comments, that were shared to us personally, as well as the op-ed that was written by Miami staff, as well as the Miami student editorial that asked good questions about this. So I'm in support of expanding DORA. I guess I have hesitation about an open-ended expansion. And so when we were talking about expanding it, I was imagining discrete sorts of events in which it would be expanded. And I understand there's an enforcement challenge of turning it on and off. And so I think leaving it totally off or totally on is much simpler for the police. And so, but I guess I am at least open to the idea of exploring what might be a middle ground. One is we just keep it the way it is, right? It ends. And, or B, as the ordinance, it's basically open-ended, 11 to 11, 7 days a week, and we experiment and then we see what happens. And then a middle ground might be that it's opened up during discrete events, like citywide events. Like, for example, later we're going to be talking about, where I guess it was part of the consent agenda, about the Red Brick Fridays. You know, I wish we did more events like that throughout the school year, and if the door were paired with the events. So anyway, that's just if it's all on or all off, I'm open to expanding it, but I guess I wish, when I initially said I was in support of it, I was hoping there was more nuance to what the expansion might look like. So,
Okay, anyone else?
I don't see this as a marriage. I mean, there's an obvious way that it can stop. I hear a lot of talk about not wanting to belittle students, maybe, and I don't think this is going to add to their current drinking problem. So I can see this as a worthwhile experiment, especially if it's something that helps businesses and makes Uptown more lively.
I've been speaking to people in the community, and there's some reluctance. There's some people who don't want us to do it at all, but there, I think, are a lot more people who feel like, it might not work, but if it doesn't work, then we end it. And I have some questions related to that. One is, what would things have to look like? And this is a question for you too, Chief Jones, to end it. Like, what is the level of disorderly conduct or litter? I know you had to do an assessment when it was just open in the summer to make sure you had staff to manage it, but I don't know if that was considered for when the students are here.
Well, let me take a shot at it first. I mean, basically what I had in mind was if we have drinking-related incidents that increase over what we have now. As we all know, we have off-campus house parties that are problems for us from time to time. And so can't give you a definite number, but, we've reserved that right to suspend it. I mean, if the police chief comes to me and says this is a problem, I'll basically send you an email and saying we're suspending it. We'll talk about it at the next council meeting. I will share with the public that I did provide City Council an email that I received from the City of Kent City Manager, because I'm good friends with him, and I recognize that they had a year-round DORA. They started about the same time we did, but they have a year-round DORA. And Dave shared with me that it has not had an impact on drinking-related incidents, either in the summer or the academic year or full year. It's really popular with their businesses and their residents, as it is here. And by having it open all year round, as was already said, there's less confusion about, when can I go out, with a beer, and so on and so forth. So, it's a pilot project. If it's a failure, we'll recognize that quickly and we'll end it. But I don't know if you have anything you want to add, JJ. Go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. So I think, what would it be for me to go to the city manager? I think you would have to have incidents of public intoxication, litter, challenging things that are actually related to the DORA. And I think everyone is losing sight of that. Like, the DORA is controlled by the bar owner who sells a cup. If it's someone walking with their Natty Light can or their White Claw can down the sidewalk, they're already in violation. Now, I think DORA, back when you instituted a DORA, that led to a little bit of ambiguity and cultural norming of open containers. So it's already done, right? And I don't foresee students using this too much, honestly. If they do and they have their DORA cups and they're out drinking and they're causing problems, I think that's when we come to the city manager and say shut it off. Or if just the DORA alone is leading to so much social norming of it, I suppose that would be a reason to come. But we already see open container violations that occur throughout the city, and we address those. So it's had literally no impact on our operations since it's been instituted. But I certainly understand the kind of the fear and the unknown that may come with a larger population having access to it. But again, I don't think, I think it's our residents who want to enjoy it, not as much the students. But if we just, again, if they're a violation of open container law without a Dora cup, I mean, that's a separate issue. So I think the trash and the litter will be the biggest challenge with it.
Question for you, Chief.
Yes.
Having a cup in the Dora area gives all of your officers probable cause to check an ID, correct?
No, I don't think so. No.
As far as age, like, are you eligible to drink? Like, are you over 21? Is that something that would allow an officer to approach an individual and just check an ID?
Yeah, I think we could do that, but I still think you have to have reasonable suspicion or probable cause. You know, I mean, not to, but if you're carrying a Dora cup through uptown, I don't know if I have probable cause to identify you.
I think you know what I mean.
But I know what you mean. Yes.
Yeah, so
if somebody's carrying an open can of Bud Light that in a public area, that's instant probable cause to check their ID.
well, I was entertaining several debates regarding this, and one of them was a person of age contributing to the delinquency of minors through the door. And my argument is, if an officer sees someone who is clearly under the age or under drinking age, they have probable cause to go and say, "Can I see an ID?"
Yes. No. I think if you see someone who looks young, you can approach them if they're holding alcohol, whether it's Dora, whether it's something else.
Right. And that was the other thing I was saying, is that all of the abuse or misbehaving laws already exist and are established. This does not change any of them. Like, regarding public intoxication, disorderly conduct, just litter, noise, menacing, inciting,
Right.
all that stuff.
Correct.
All of that already exists, and we have, we'll just say, a well-matured response to many of these things due to the iterations that we've had in this town.
Yeah. I agree.
I want to acknowledge for the record that we received a number of communications to all of council on both sides of the issue, and we appreciate the comments that were sent in and taking them into consideration. Thank you.
Could I just ask a question? And this is, and I'm a person who supported the DORA. I'm in support of the DORA. And I think we've answered the question about the kind of the illegal conduct that we can use, and if it gets out of control. The op-ed from Dr. Brownell and Moore and Large touched on more of a cultural issue. I'm just kind of curious, for those who, it seems the majority is in, their argument is that those people who are seeking out a different type of experience without alcohol present deserve places uptown where they can go shop, socialize, and enjoy the outdoors. And the expansion of this policy would remove the already limited alcohol-free options for them uptown. So it's less about disorder than it is about a culture of drinking permeating every outdoor space, and whether that's a reason not to do it or not. But I'm just kind of curious, for those people who are open, what would you say to that argument that they made in the Miami?
I am happy to touch on that a little bit, because I've been thinking about this a lot. And when I was here, I was not a super go to Brick Street every weekend kind of student. So I did appreciate those spaces where, excessive imbibing was not the order of the, area. And I think that, to me, it's a couple of things. One, it's a pretty limited area of uptown. Two, if somebody's not selling alcohol, like, it's not, Apple Tree isn't all of a sudden going to become a bar. So there are still places for them to go shop. The places that they would already be going to eat are, by and large, already selling alcohol, even Kafenya. So I don't see the expansion of DORA into the school year as exacerbating that issue. Granted, that is pending. Our hypothesis that the students, by and large, the reason they want to be at Brick Street is because they want to be at Brick Street. It's not to go drink next to a family who's playing in the fountain uptown. So I think that space of uptown will still be, by and large, protected for them. It's a matter of, is an adult having a beer on a bench while they eat Mac and Joe's? Like, you know, how impactful is that? And I think further, you know, we already technically have DORA when the students are here. We do have a summer population of students who are here, and a lot of those students are very studious and, you know, working on summer scholar projects and, you know, not necessarily the most visible drinking type of students. So I think, you know, we have shown that we can coexist in a space where it's non-exclusionary to have, you know, uptown beverages while the students are here. So that's where my train of thought has been on that question.
I'm not a drinker. And so when I think about this, I think about the excessive drinking, you know, and part of my background informs this. I know it's different rules, different countries, but growing up in Canada where Ontario, the drinking age was 19, Quebec it's 18, there were student-run campus pubs on campus. What I read in preparing for this is actually some of these campus pubs are starting to turn half of their floor into coffee shops because there's actually not that much of a desire for alcohol. People are really into coffee drinks and things like that. And so for me, I'm not a student anymore, but I would, and still do, enjoy going out with friends who might enjoy a drink, and as long as I'm not around excessive drinking, it's fine. And so I think focusing on excessive drinking in the uptown area is something to consider. I will say I was out, it was right after the Easter weekend, and there was a soccer tournament in town, I think, with parents and little kids. And, you know, I don't know how families will respond depending on the kind of drinking or how much public drinking there is. But again, I think if people are not publicly intoxicated, it might not be a problem. But it's, as Chantal said, it's not a marriage. I mean, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
I guess I would also point out that we've had experience with DORA, and I think we should rely on some of that experience to say, well, let's take one more step. But I think it's a tentative step in the sense that the city manager has indicated if it turns out to be problematic, then we can put an end to it. So this doesn't say that it's endless. It just doesn't state that there's an end date.
So I mean, I guess I wanted, out of respect for the fact that I think this is it's a well-reasoned argument. I mean, I spent a lot of time in Europe, and kids and alcohol in playgrounds, you know, like it's okay. It can be okay. It doesn't, we in the United States keep things very separate. But I think it's a legitimate argument as long as we thought about that. I think that that's good. I guess I would just ask that we set a date to revisit it. We don't just necessarily wait for like, well, is there a problem? Let's shut it down. But let's have a conversation after a month of it and just revisit it. And it could be are there reports? How do we feel about it culturally? Does it change the vibe of uptown that we don't like? And so it's not necessarily, it's got to be a disaster before we pull the plug. If it's truly a pilot, I don't know, if we could just revisit it at a certain point in time and just say, how's it going? And maybe it's good, or so.
We'll probably, I mean, you know, if there are complaints that I receive or the police receive, we'll share those with you. If the chief alerts me that this is not going well, we'll stop it, we'll let you know. If you want to pick a certain date, I would suggest doing it when the students are back, because that's,
So you can
know.
actually have the
Perhaps
experiment.
after a month's experience with DORA, with the students back September 15th or something, and just.
Well, I'd
just
say
touch base.
maybe in the middle of October, because when the weather changes, most people are gonna go inside anyway.
right.
But, I was gonna say, any counselor could bring that up, certainly, and ask how it's going.
Right.
But I think we could have just an agreement, we'll reassess in October, but it doesn't have to be in the resolution.
And I'm looking at Randy just because you're the only Miami person in the room, but I think that, I think that everyone can agree that excessive drinking is a problem. Miami knows it. I mean, that's why they're in big opposition, right? But I think that pointing the finger at DORA probably isn't it. So I wonder what we could do as far as how can the university and maybe take some of those police reports and really take it into something tangible as far as how can it affect their diploma, something that they actually care about. So I would love to take this like enthusiasm against DORA to maybe think about what are other ways we can work together.
This is a resolution, so all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is adopted. We'll move to number 7.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a $225,000 grant agreement with the Ohio Department of Public Safety to engage in and coordinate as lead agency for the countywide OVI task force.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Thank you, Glenn.
So now we have a program for those who enjoy their Dora and get in a car. This is our OVI grant. The police department's the lead agency for the Butler County OVI task force. So we administer that grant along with finance staff. It's through the Ohio Department of Public Safety. It's $225,000. It's distributed to 13 agencies in Butler County. There's a required number of checkpoints they have to do, and then OVI saturation patrols. So it, being the lead agency does benefit Oxford as we get a higher share of that. So it helps put officers out on the street in your community.
Okay, we've been doing this.
For many, many years. And we've been the lead agency since, I want to say, 2014. So.
Thank you. Would anyone from the public like to address this item? Seeing none, councilors? Questions? Yes.
I'd just say that this is a statistic I would want relative to Dora.
Mhm.
If we'd seen numbers go up here, I would definitely think.
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. All those in favor of the resolution indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. We'll move to ordinances, first reading. You may read the first.
An ordinance authorizing the tax budget for year 2023 and directing the same be transmitted to the Butler County Auditor.
Okay. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. This is the first step in our budgeting process. It's required by the Ohio Revised Code. We have to pass it as a legislative body and return it to the county, to their budget commission by July 20th. And the other stuff I'll probably read next time because we actually have to have a public hearing, so that'll keep them amused. But it's not all that pertinent tonight. So the way I've attacked this is more of an exercise just to show you have enough money to pay your general obligation debt, and you show how much property tax you receive, and then you show how much debt is. And you go into all this other detail, and since we're going to be doing that in the coming months, I don't see why I don't have a hat that I put on and just guess stuff. So I leave it up to department heads, and we all work on a budget together. So this is basically just taking the 2022 budget and applying it to this tax budget, just to show that we have the income tax coming in for the 2 new counselors. So if you look on page 114, you'll see on the Schedule A it says governmental funds, and we asked the Budget Commission, we get $1.4 million coming to the general fund. Special revenue funds, we get about $1,378,128, and that's split between the trail and then the projects that pay for the road improvement up on 27 South. All the different, the 5 different areas there that the taxes actually go towards. 75% of it goes towards the payment of the money that we borrowed to put in the road down on 27 South. Then if you go to page 123, is the other one that really shows what's going on for this whole exercise. Is you show what the two debts that we have that have to do with property taxes. The one is for the Aquatic Center. Next year it'll be $311,050, and then the South Point Tiff Road project of $303,275. So we've received plenty of money for both those. So basically that's what this tax budget tells you, even though there's a lot of other stuff in here. But
is just, like I said, basically I just go in and use last year's budget. But I will go over and just point out what's different in the general fund. And the other funds are, I'll just go briefly because they're basically exactly the same. But this also looks at any of the supplementals we brought in this year. So when you look at the 22 estimate and the 23 projected budget, federal grants, we received $31,451, and I believe the police department got that for their cameras, the grant that they applied for. So we did a supplemental to show that. Return from the advance to the capital improvement fund. We don't know what projects will be outstanding next year. At the end of this year, that'll get reimbursed next year, so I didn't put anything in. Return of advance from Oxford Area Trails Fund. And this is just an accounting thing that I had to do, so everything worked out. And actually, that won't be a problem, I don't believe, going forward. And then an advance from the Oxford Area Trails Fund. This year we had to advance a whole bunch of money because we were going to do 2 projects at once. So I just put it in at $560 next year to make things balance out. And then return of advance from the High Street Pedestrian Fund. We had $400,000 this year and $366, $350, and again, I just had to put that in there because that'll be closed out by the end of this year also. The next one's in law enforcement on the expenditure side, $67,481. That was all that money was encumbered this year, so it was encumbered at the end of last year, so I just put in new budget terms. On public health and welfare, the $24,473 there. And it's actually not recreation program, it's community assistance. That was the money that we used to buy the software for the short-term rentals. And that'll be in the budget next year, but we'll deal with that come next year. And then all the rest of everything else in the general fund, all the deltas are all money we had encumbered at the end of last year that won't be encumbered at the end of this year that we know of. So those are the only things in the general fund. And then again with the transfers, since it has to be a balanced budget, debt service to the Aquatic Center went up by $5,800. So I just decreased the amount of money that we transferred the capital equipment fund by the same amount, so everything balances out. And the advances I had already talked about on the revenue side. This is just showing the advance going out of the fund. And as far as anything on Exhibit C on page 127, pretty much the only ones, excuse me, that were any changes is any monies that we transferred it out for capital projects. I just put the amount of expenditures equal to the amount of transfers. That's the only difference in the wastewater and the water capital improvement and capital and equipment funds. And again, the South Point TIF district, I adjusted those transfers to make sure that we were able to support the debt service for next year. So they went up by a little bit because the debt service goes up from year to year. Some it's a little higher, down to a little lower, but it's within about $2,000 or $3,000 each year. So those are the only changes I made to the budget.
And the details of our budget for next year will be handled later.
Correct, and that's why this is more of a
Pro forma, I think.
pro forma, right? And I don't put a lot of extra time into it if I don't have to because I got plenty of other stuff to do.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Council, any questions?
I'm going to use this as a chance to bring up possibly conforming our municipal boundaries to pull back millage that otherwise is lost to the township without services. That's something we've brought up before, but haven't discussed. We're talking about tax budgets. I just thought I'd bring it now so it doesn't get lost.
Yeah.
It's about $90,000 revenue that I think we would make better use of. We had it in our hands.
Will staff be looking at that?
We're looking at it now,
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Anyone else? Okay, that was first reading, so hear it again at our next meeting, and vote on it at that time. So we'll move to second readings, and you may read the first one.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 3654, supplemental budget ordinance number 4, to make supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2022.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt this ordinance. Joe, any
thank you.
changes from last time?
The first one stayed the same, the 103,000, and then we had 3 additional items that came up, and they all have to do with, the first one is insurance proceeds for fixing the guardrail at Campus and Chestnut. We received $5,673.26 from the insurance company, so we're showing that as revenue, and then showing the expense, $5,673.26 in the same fund, so it has a zero effect on the fund because there's money coming in, money going out the same amount. The next one, in the wastewater capital equipment fund, Mike's group was able to go out to get a Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation trench safety grant for $11,221.60. So we're showing they were successful in receiving that grant, and that we got the revenue of $11,221.60, and then purchasing that equipment on the expenditure size for $11,221.60. And again, they go out of their way to look for these grants, and my hat's off to them, because when you bring money in and it covers the expenses, that's a great thing for the city. And then the next one, they also went out for a grant, and this one had for the water fund, and this is the OPA's lead service line inventory and mapping grant program. They were able to secure $47,300. So we're showing the revenue coming in from the grant, and then the expenditure to actually do the inventory and mapping of the lead service lines in the city. And again, we had money in the budget for lead service lines this year, but that's to help residents who may have to replace their lines. So this is above and beyond. It's going to give us a good indication of what we actually have in the city, so we know, because at this point we just test those, I believe, when we do any paving or anything on a street. So this will give us a good inventory, so we actually know what we have. So again, thanks for getting that grant, and makes the city safer.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to address this item? Hearing none. Any questions or discussion from council? Call the roll.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mr. Prethridge?
Yes.
Ms. Ragu?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Mayor Snavely?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance is adopted. Thank you very much, Joe. You can read the second when you're ready.
An ordinance by Oxford City Council repealing the current section 151904, possession, sale, or discharge prohibited, exceptions of the codified ordinances of Oxford, the City of Oxford, Ohio, and enacting a new section 151904, possession, sale, or discharge prohibited, exceptions for the purposes of addressing the provisions of House Bill 172 concerning the right of municipalities to retain the regulations and prohibitions on the discharge, ignition, and exploding of fireworks that existed prior to the enactment of House Bill 172.
That's a pretty long title, isn't it?
Just a bit.
All right. Is there a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alice. It's been moved and seconded. And
Yeah, as I stated the last time, and the title pretty much covered everything, but House Bill 172 allows individuals to possess consumer-grade fireworks. It lists a number of holidays, but what we're saying is we're reinforcing that even though this bill was passed, you still cannot possess fireworks in the city of Oxford, so.
okay. Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who would like to address this? Seeing none, council. So we're not changing anything.
Right, we are adding a section that basically says you can forget this new bill because you still can't possess them in Oxford.
But we're not, someone asked me, I hear we're banning all fireworks, and we're still gonna have 4th of July fireworks.
No, this is consumer grade fireworks, and I don't believe we qualify those as consumer grade fireworks.
Any further discussion? May call the roll.
Mr. Prethridge?
Yes.
Ms. Ragu?
Yes.
Mr. Bracken?
Yes.
Mr. Ellerby?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. French?
Yes.
Mayor Snavely?
Yes, the ordinance is adopted. We'll move to announcements and communications and begin with remarks by council and staff. I'll begin with City Manager Doug Elliott.
Thank you. A couple things I wanted to share with the council and the public, that we had our first labor management committee with the fire EMS division. This was under our new collective bargaining agreement. We basically discussed, the main topic was staffing. I want to share with you that the fire and EMS division responded to 846 fire calls and 2,195 EMS calls in 2021. And this was done with a staff of 9 full-time firefighter paramedics supplemented with part-time staff. So we've seen both fire and EMS calls have increased over the last 15 years, except for the declines in the years 2019 and 2020 due to COVID. So in order to add additional full-time staffing, we're going to need additional revenue, of course. We talked about 3 options generally, and those 3 options, one would be an income tax increase, or as the mayor likes to remind us, an earnings tax. The second one is a real property tax. And the third one that we discussed was a Miami University student fee. So as you know, the first 2 options would require voter approval. The third option would of course require the support of Miami University. If you remember, in 2018, we had a public safety forum hosted on the Miami campus by the Miami student, and a student fee was broached at that time and discussed a little bit. So the students, Miami University students, represent the majority of our population. We estimate approximately 65% of our population in 2019. And so they have a big impact on both fire and EMS calls. And just to give you some example, fire calls from the campus of Miami University represented a 5-year average of 23.46 of all fire calls. That doesn't include the off-campus student housing. This was just for Miami University campus. And the EMS calls from the campus had a 5-year average of 18.6%. And once again, both percentages do not include calls to off-campus student housing. In 2011, we looked at the age groups, which includes Miami University students. The age group that includes them was about 48% of our EMS calls. So that's one of the reasons that we discussed the student fee, but of course, once again, that would require the support of Miami University. We talked about possibly a combination, because if you think about a real property tax, all of Miami University property, as well as churches, the city, and the school, they're exempt from real property taxation. So that's an issue there. If you look at an income tax increase, of course, the senior citizens that might be on pensions and investment income, they're exempt from that. They do not pay income tax on that. So, we'll be discussing that more, and I'm sure we'll be having a work session with council to discuss that. If we do put something on the ballot, we talked about in the May 2023 primary, to put something on the ballot. So our next meeting will be in August, but we'll be continuing that discussion. We did discuss other items at that Labor Management Committee meeting, but that was the one that we spent the most time on. The last thing that I want to share with you, as you know, the state Ohio Board of Pharmacy issued provisional dispensary license for this second round, and 3 are located in our district, which is Southwest District 2, with 2 of the 3 located in Oxford. The other one's located in Monroe. And I gave you the names of the companies and their addresses. The two addresses, one is 5280 College Corner Pike, and that was the former Asian Food Mart. And then the other one is 3616 hyphenated 3620 South Point Parkway. So that was announced yesterday or today. I will share with you both locations will still need to obtain a building permit for build out and or change of use. So I wanted to share that with you since that was released. I kept getting on their website and they kept saying we're making sure the applications are complete, but no announcements were made. But those were made recently, and I wanted to share that with you. So that's all I have, unless you have some questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Good evening. I wanted to take a moment and recognize Dave Trelevin, who's coordinated our Rumpke solid waste and recycling contract. So I'd like to thank everyone for their patience as we get the town cleaned up from move out. Generally takes 3 or 4 days, so hopefully by tomorrow night things will be back in order. We've had some high profile events with graduation and the Oxford Wine Fest, and pardon me for not knowing the correct name, Craft Beer Festival.
Oxford Wine and Craft Beer.
Thank you. So the town will be tip-top shape for that this weekend. And I'd also like to recognize the Flores Garden Club. They provide the funds for us to do the hanging basket program through the Uptown District. And the hanging baskets are peppered through other facilities as well throughout town. So everybody's working hard to make Oxford a beautiful town, and we appreciate everyone's support.
I've noticed a lot less mounds of garbage this year than last year. Seems like we're doing a better job this year.
I think there's several factors. One also being the move out was a little longer duration, and some people left right away.
Yeah.
Some stayed to party for the last weekend, and a few stragglers now. So it wasn't all out just in one day. So that was good. Thank you.
Thank you. JJ? Nothing, thank you. Joe? Nothing, thank you. Chief? Nothing, sir. Casey, come on up.
I like to get my talking in while I'm here, so. Hey. Just a couple of things. Saturday, May 28th is opening day for the Aquatic Center. This is a good time to mention that we've had some excellent opening day cannonballs in the past from whoever the mayor was, so I'm offering that service to you if you're willing.
I will offer that opportunity to any of you. You're the mayor, bro. It will not happen.
It will not happen. Would you be willing to be there for opening day? How about a trip down the slide?
I might do this.
Okay, excellent. We'll take that. Secondly,
70 years old.
Lifeguards are on duty all the time.
I appreciate that.
And then last week I had a Recreation Board meeting, and Councilor French asked me about Freedom Festival, and it reminded me that I should inform all of you that on July 2nd we will have the Freedom Fest Parade. It will be back this year. It will be uptown as it was prior to COVID. And all of you are invited and welcome to lead that parade in a horse-drawn carriage. So I will send the details out to you, but just so you're aware, that is on Saturday, July 2nd at 6:30 is the parade. And then there's a special music fest right after that at 7 o'clock that Enjoy Oxford's putting on. So, thank you.
Super. Thank you, Casey. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you. Good evening. I also wanted to comment on just how clean the town looks compared to previous years. So adding the containers around the mile square, I've appreciated that. It's helped a lot with code enforcement. We hate to see those things going to the landfill, but it is another way to help with just the overall process. ShareFest and Miami University, Goodwill, there's a lot of partners, food pantries, help get a lot of those solid waste items to other places. So we're very appreciative of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica?
Good evening. I have a few updates. First, Last meeting, Councilor Bracken, you would ask me a question about climate use with the American Rescue Plan dollars, and I feel like I didn't give a very good answer to that. So I just wanted to clarify that climate is not directly an allowable use of American Rescue Plan dollars, which is probably why we don't have a strong recommendation in that category at this point. It would really have to be an infrastructure or directly COVID-related expense. And we did just receive a notification of our second allocation, and they said, it said, we really encourage you to use this on affordable housing and creating new jobs. And I was like, oh, we're like, okay. So the projects we have recommended to you are very much in line with that. And on that note, we'll be sending out a formal invitation, but I'm hoping that we can have a work session on an off Tuesday, and I'm proposing Tuesday, May 31st, from 5 to 7 if possible. We can change the time, but the goal is to have almost like a retreat style work session where we get into the nitty gritty, get up out of our seats, go to boards, and like really kind of hash out some of these final recommendations that we have for you, so that we can bring forward formal recommendations for you to vote on in the near future. That's what we would like to do. So I'll be sending an email out and announcing that to the public once we can kind of confirm that that date works for you. I also wanted to just briefly address the letter that we got from the Butler County Development Department regarding there is a public meeting on Monday, June 13th at 9:30 a.m. at the County Commissioner's headquarters office. I almost got off the top of my head, sorry. And it is addressing the prohibiting of economically significant wind farms, and large solar facilities. And so I went down to the planning department and got a copy of the map, which is here, but basically it's like everywhere except Lemon Township. And I was frankly shocked. I was like, well, what? You know, and so after learning that, I kind of then asked, well, what are the definitions of economically significant? And it's 5 to 49 megawatts is an economically significant wind farm, and then anything over 50 megawatts of wind farm and solar is considered, would be prohibited. And then the cities are still allowed to do these projects, but the township areas would not. Kate Ruminier asked me to kind of share her thoughts briefly, and then did share that the county commissioners indicated to the townships like, hey, we're thinking of doing this, and the townships then passed resolutions like either in favor or against this recommendation. And Oxford Township did vote in to agree with the county commissioners on a prohibition of wind and solar, and she did just explain that the county commissioners had the final say, and that the non-incorporated township residents in large part are in favor of this prohibition. And so she encourages all of you, if you're able to attend this meeting on June 13th and share your thoughts. And she also invites a representative council to start attending township meetings if you'd like. And we can follow up in an email with their schedule and things like that. I can't answer any questions. I'm in the messenger. But I did want to let you know about the public meeting. I think that's everything I have for tonight.
Very disappointing. What is the time of that meeting?
It is 9:30 a.m. and the county commissioners, I can't even think of the word today. I'm apologies.
Is it in the government center?
Yes, it's in the government center upstairs, and they have their own chambers. Thank you. It is 315 High Street, Hamilton, Ohio, in the Government Services Center.
You know, it's a little disappointing that our assistant city manager had to go there to get the map. Wasn't available online. You know, it's I don't know, not real sunshiny, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, and
there's a bit of shade.
Yeah, there's an option here because, you know, basically they had a lot of complaints that counties wanted to have input on it, and so this bill was passed. And there's two options. One, they could do like Jessica's outlined and have these designated areas, designated restricted areas, or they would still could move forward with them, but they have to have a public hearing. Once they pass this restricted area designation, if someone wanted to do a project, they would have to go to the voters and have it approved. So it's made it more complicated. And I think if you remember in the email that I sent, you know, it basically said that now the cost per megawatt to build a solar plant is below fossil fuels for the first time. And, you know, so it's,
You know, if that's the attitude that our township trustees want to take, then I think it lends credence to Jason's comment earlier that it's time for us to separate from them. And I think their decision has made my decision.
Can I add?
Please.
So one, that also, this is only for renewable energy. It doesn't preclude fossil fuel setting up any number of plants there, which is.
yeah, but you wanted to build a new
Coal plant.
fossil fuel plant, you wouldn't have to go through this process. Now, you would still have to go to the Power Siting Commission, and they just added an extra step for solar renewable.
Smokestacks are okay, solar panels are not, so.
So much for property rights, right?
And when I was at the township meeting this year, their annual meeting, all the township trustees said to me that they didn't like the wind turbines, but they were okay with solar. And apparently all that went out the window and they no longer believe that. I just find this very distressing. And I would like us to proceed in the quickest possible way to separate ourselves from the township.
I'll be providing you some information.
Thank you.
I just wanted to address, so going back to ARPA, and not to throw any wrenches in our plans, which I think are probably looking pretty good, but without climate being the goal, but just renewable energy infrastructure, would that fall under the general infrastructure possibilities?
It really has to have a direct COVID link, and so that's the hard part that we've been trying to do. Yeah.
And so the other infrastructure also has to be directly related to.
It does. You have to be able to prove that it's like pre-planned and you weren't able to do it because of blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Heather?
Nothing, thank you.
Ben?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Glenn?
Nothing, thank you.
Helen?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One, a huge kudos to not only, keeping the town really nice as move out has happened, but I have to say usually I try to avoid the general uptown area as adamantly as I can, especially now that I don't work uptown during graduation weekends. But I was asked to go to a graduation party right in the heart of uptown, right in the middle of Saturday, and I buckled in for a inexplicably long drive from my house to the party location. And, kudos to Chief Jones and his crew. It was, dare I say, painless. Pedestrians were under control, traffic flow was under control. I mean, I'm not going to make it an annual tradition, but it was great. So thank you for that.
Well, thanks. That was all my crew because I was not working. But about everybody else was. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And also, if graduation weekend wasn't enough, Miami also hosted the softball MAC tournament this weekend to add a little bit of chaos on top of chaos. So it was literally the tournament was happening as graduation was happening, like a softball's throw from each other. And so congratulations to the Red Hawks for winning the MAC this year. This is the second year in a row they've won the MAC. They're a fantastic group of young women and student athletes, so keep an eye out for them during the NCAA championship coming soon. And I am glad that Casey reminded us about the parade because for a little while I thought he was joking, so that's not a joke. Noted. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
If I could, I just wanted to have a moment of silence for, we have mass shootings all the time, but just to point out the ones that happen in New York and California from hate crimes, racially biased. So if we could just think about those people, and I think that, it can feel so far away because it's not happening here. And I don't even want to say it could happen here because I think we all know that it doesn't need to be said. But I think that the work that we do to be inclusive and bring people in and invite as many people to the table as possible does such good work. So anytime we make social media posts or, promote different businesses, that has such a positive effect. So I thank us for going forward into that effort, and I will always say, just befriend people who don't look like you or think like you, and you have no idea what an impact it could make. And this is AAPI Heritage Month. I was lucky enough to speak at a beautiful event at Memorial Hall this past Saturday, and something that I learned is that AAPI, or Asian American Pacific Islander adolescents, experience the highest level of racial discrimination from their peers from any other group. So something to think about. You know, I have grown up with this my whole life, and I will always push back when I hear people not being inclusive over businesses that they find to be different from what they expect. So yeah, check out any type of Asian-owned restaurant this month. You know, you might find really awesome dishes and meet some cool people.
Couple of comments. You all remember the civil rights mural that used to be uptown. It's very close to being touched up. Joe Pressure's been working on that, and so when he says that it's done, I'll communicate with city staff, and we'll get it eventually mounted onto the municipal building, so that would be exciting. I also wanted to talk about the events in New York. You know, some of you know of the experiences that I've had in Oxford, you know, going for a walk, being called the N-word. Glenn, we've talked about that, I think, before. And when these things happen, I do feel fearful. There are times when I don't feel necessarily that safe. And then when I feel afraid, I kind of turn inward, and then I have to try to find the line between, am I just taking care of myself, or am I isolating in a way that is unhealthy? But I do find that when I go uptown and hang out in front of Cafeña and see people walking by, I feel better. And I think that, though I am afraid, I think when we entertain the fear too much, it divorces us from our own humanity. And I think that's what happened. That young man just peddled in so much fear of the other, fear of change, fear of anything different, and lies, that he got divorced from his own humanity. And you cannot dehumanize other people unless you dehumanize yourself first. And so I want to encourage us to continue to connect with each other as an antidote to fear, so that we can stay in touch with our own humanity. And there's a program that I'd like to do in the city. It's called Living Room Conversations. And if you go online and look up Living Room Conversations, and you look up the one called Civic Renewal, it's an intergroup dialogue way that we can communicate with each other. And the good news is, when I've kind of been planting seeds in the community about it, there are people who are really desperate to have conversations. They really would like to talk to people who are different. The bad news is, when I ask them, like, can you invite someone who is different on the political spectrum than you, they don't know that many people, or they don't connect with that many people. We're all sort of, many of us are in a bubble, silos. So if the city would be willing to maybe make copies, I would like to hand some out at a city council meeting of the Living Room Conversations dialogue guide, but you can also find it online. I think that's a way for us to connect with each other in this town. I would love to make Oxford a Living Room Conversations community. And I just want to end with this quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Returning hate for hate multiplies hate, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Thank you.
And there's so many big topics that we talked about: the attack on Roe v. Wade that continues, the recent mass shootings, but a lot of that has been discussed, and some of it is too long to discuss now. I'll just say that COVID is on the rise. I should have been wearing my mask today, and I left it at home. But one thing you can do is there are free test kits available to everyone. You can order them now. They will be shipped to you for free. I highly recommend that, and just keep an eye out, because it's getting a little dangerous out there again. That's all.
Thank you. David?
So, I think we could have a moment of silence for 1 million people who are no longer on the planet. And I'm really proud of what we've done. But when the most careful people you know are getting COVID right now, you know it's all around us. and so I was trying to avoid it. Okay, school's over, I'm gonna start wearing my mask, and it came home with my high schooler, and so now half of my family has it. Everybody's gonna be fine, but it remains as transmissible and adaptable, and your vaccine is only gonna last you so long, so I think that COVID is going to be something we will be continuing. So it's, yeah, I was enjoying going mask-free, but I'm also hoping not to be quarantined. It's very disruptive. Even if it's just a minor thing, it's a major disruption to your life. I just would also just like to express my profound confusion and disappointment about the township's decision. I can imagine the rationalizations that you could make, but I mean, I feel like we have partnered, and I thought there was great shared values on these issues. We have appointed township residents to our Climate Action Steering Committee, providing leadership, and we've not shut our doors to that, and we assume that they share our values, and that they're as vulnerable, if not more so. The rural areas, farmers are gonna face a very difficult future, and meeting the scale of the challenge is going to require scaling up the solution, and to shut the door on the only thing that's going to prevent the catastrophic future that will really affect our rural areas is, you know, I don't get it, and I thought I understood the township better than I do. Obviously, we are in a great position, and we'll keep doing what we're going to do, and I think the conversation has to continue, because I think that, yeah, if I were a farmer, I might like to have the right to develop wind on my property
I mean,
too.
the farmers union is in support of it.
Yeah, so I just,
Yeah. Crazy. I want to just say congratulations to Miami University and their graduates and their faculty. I'm really happy that they're done as well. I want to remind everyone again of the Wine and Craft Beer Festival, which will be uptown. I hope that counselors can be around uptown if you are able and interested. I hope that you will. I think it's going to be a nice event, and it will bring people in to our town and help our local businesses, which need every little bit of help that we can get. And with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded by Councilor French. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.